What can I say about this race that hasn't already been said? This Clash race, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, was better than the 2022 version for about half the race. But before we get into that, let's get into everything else like before then, of leading up to the race. Let's start with the heats, uh, which I think, in all honesty, was like the best part of the entire day, which was the heat races, if you can believe it. I think the one thing that kind of surprised me in the four heat races that we got, or essentially the six heat races that we got, was just the amount of aggressiveness in everybody. Because I feel like last year there wasn't as much of it. I have a terrible memory, so I could be wrong on that home front. Um, but with the extended field and everything, it made it to where, you know, the heats meant quite a bit. In all honesty, um, and in all and I'll be fair, or not fair, but I'll be honest. The heats were pretty fun. I liked watching the heats. Let's start with the first heat. Um, Justin Haley ended up starting on pole in that heat. Uh, he did drive away for a little bit with the lead. We didn't really drive away with it. He held the lead. There you go. He held the lead for a little bit. It was a 25 lap race, or 25 lap heat, excuse me, 25 lap heat. Justin Haley held on for as long as he could until Aric Almirola gave him the good old bump and run, because the LA Coliseum, that's like the only way you can pass anybody is if you give him the bump and run, or you might be able to get a run on him if you don't get ran into from behind. But that's if that happens. But I gotta tell you, the first heat was pretty enjoyable, especially with like some of the things that were going on in that first heat. Obviously, Joey Logano in the first heat, he started terribly because he had a terrible qualifying session, and oddly enough, he was able to work his way up through the field to get himself into the top five to transfer in to the main event, to the main show. So the top five that did end up making it into the show, at least in the first heat, and the five guys that ended up coming out of the first heat in the top five were Aric Almirola, Alex Bowman, Justin Haley, Noah Gragson, and Joey Logano. The one person, or the few people that actually surprised me, was Aric Almirola, Alex Bowman, Justin Haley, and Noah Gragson. The fact that they were able to stay ahead of Logano and avoid him like slamming into both of them, I guess, made it to the point where it was actually pretty good. It was actually nice for them. Well, not nice, but it was actually pretty interesting to see them hold off the defending champion in this race. So, I mean, kudos to them, and even kudos to Aric Almirola, who, funny enough, was actually going to retire last year, and then Smithfield was just like, nada, you got to come back for 2023. And what do you know? He kicks it off with a bang. He starts second, and he just takes the lead with like under, or not under, but I think with like 12 to go. And he just kind of drove away. Bowman tried getting him a couple times, failed. But yeah, Aric Almirola ended up winning the first heat, and I would say that set the stage for pretty much every other heat, but as a matter of fact, it really didn't. I feel like in the first heat there wasn't as much carnage as there were in like later heats and even in the main event. Um, but again, in all fairness, it was a good heat. I liked the first one. You may have a difference of opinions or whatever on the first heat, but that's what I think. I think the first heat was all right. It did pretty well in my eyes. It was good racing. It was really good racing. They were aggressive. That's kind of what happens when you have nine cars. Because funny enough, the LA Coliseum, in my mind, is not really suited for more than like 15 cars. But that's up for debate. That literally is. But that was the first heat. And then you go on to the second heat. The second heat featured a vast array of drivers. A lot of them people were not expecting to have the outcome at the end of the second heat that they were anticipating. One of the drivers that shined the most in the second heat was Martin Truex Jr., and he shined all night. And to be honest with you, I, as someone that has essentially watched Truex like through like the vast majority of his life, my life essentially, um, you know, from what he dealt with in 2022, it was nice to see him do well, especially in the heat. The heat originally was technically being dominated by the RCR guys of Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. Larson was up there here and there, but Truex really came to form in this race. When it wasn't Kyle and Austin really taking the center stage, Martin Truex actually kind of snuck in there for a little bit. He had a good battle with Kyle. He raced him clean. He raced him professionally. He passed him cleanly. A caution came out at some point late in the going and really kind of screwed up Ricky Stenhouse Jr. because it looked like he was going to make it into the main event. And with the caution, it kind of threw a spanner in the works for him. So essentially, when you have someone like Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott and Austin Cindric especially that are on the outside trying to make it in, it's a high possibility that, you're probably not going to make it when you have those two behind them, especially when they have history with one another. We go back racing. Truex and Kyle really, they have a battle of their own. In the end, Truex came out on top. It was really cool to see him win a heat. He ended up starting second for the main event. The five guys that ended up transferring into the main event was Truex, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson, and Kevin Harvick. The two big surprises, actually the one big surprise, was Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott was actually going to make it in originally when he laid the bumper to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., but actually, no, he didn't even get the bumper. He didn't even lay the bumper to Stenhouse. Stenhouse laid the bumper to him, and that washed up the both of them, and Harvick just snuck on through, grabbed the final spot, made into the main event. I might have it wrong. It may have been Stenhouse bumped Chase Elliott or Elliott bumped Stenhouse. I can't remember. But all I know is that Harvick snuck in, grabbed the 5th position, and basically the nightmare for Chase Elliott from the end of 2022 or just in 2022 in general is carrying over to here, and it really did not look good for him. But that was one of the main surprises, which was Chase Elliott not making the main event, especially in the second stage, or not second stage, but the second race. So it was definitely something interesting to watch out. The third heat consisted of another competitive field, which was won and dominated by Denny Hamlin. Nothing really too big happened except Daniel Suarez and Brad Keselowski getting into it. Essentially, Daniel needed to do it if he wanted to make it into the main event, so he did. A lot of carnage happened around them. Denny Hamlin ended up getting the win. He ended up winning the heat. The top five, the 5 guys that ended up transferring in was Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, and funny enough, Daniel Suarez. Suarez wasn't look like he was going to make it in, but after Bell started having issues, that's when he was actually able to make it in. And really just kind of stole the spot and forced Bell into the last chance qualifiers alongside like Chase Elliott and Austin Cindric as well, which, in all honesty, was kind of surprising to see that. I did not really think that that's what ended up happening, but funny enough, it did. So that is what the third heat was. And then we had the fourth and final heat before the LCQs, which was the last chance qualifiers. And in this one, in all honesty, I don't remember it too much, mainly because it was mainly dominated by William Byron, which is amazing coming from someone that is a fan of his. But it was nice seeing him dominate something. He led all the 25 laps. No cautions happened, but the top 5 were Byron, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Ryan Preece, and Erik Jones. Ryan Preece in the race was amazing in both the heat and in the main event. It was amazing to see. And yeah, nothing really happened in Heat 4, but I can definitely tell you this right now. Those 4 heats were pretty freaking fun to watch, and in all honesty, if I could watch those again, I would. I honestly would. Now we head into the meat and potatoes. The last chance qualifiers. This was basically the people that couldn't get into the top 5 in heats 1 to 4. This was the last chance, but only the top 3 would advance. I missed a little bit of the first LCQ, which was consisted of drivers from, I think, from what Bob Pockris said. The first heat consisted of, first one was consisted of the heats 1 and 3, and the second one was from heats 2 and 4. So it's a little confusing, but that's basically how NASCAR got it. So basically, second heat was dominated by Michael McDowell. Originally, it was going to be Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell, and Harrison Burton that was looking like he was going to make it in, because Burton was running second the vast majority of the race, it seemed, until he made a mistake in turn two, gave up the position to Christopher Bell and Todd Gilliland, and he ended up missing out on making the clash, while McDowell, Bell, and Gilliland ended up making it in, which is pretty good. Two front row motorsports cars in the final heat or into the main event, pretty good. In the next heat, you had big names such as Chase Elliott, and even you can even add in Ty Gibbs in there. But you had like big names like Chase Elliott, Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, Stenhouse, honestly, and Austin Cindric that were a part of the final LCQ that were going to make it in. Another, again, pretty tame, just like the fourth heat, just like the first LCQ. Chase Elliott and Ty Gibbs did battle for a little bit. Chase Elliott ended up coming up out on top, with Ty Gibbs finishing second and AJ Allmendinger finishing third, so those three advanced in. With Chase Elliott winning that race, Cindric was able to get in on points from the previous season. That's why he was actually in the main event, funny enough. He ended up finishing fifth, but because Chase Elliott and Christopher Bell made it into the main event, one more spot needed to be filled, and it went to Cindric. So, pretty good for Cindric, not going to lie. Now we get to the main event. Oh boy, is there a lot to talk about when it comes to the main event. So let me just say this first by saying the first 75 laps of the main event was amazing. I loved the racing. There wasn't as much carnage. There was carnage here and there. V-Rex happened, but nothing too crazy. The first 75 laps went by what felt like pretty goddamn quickly, and I actually, funny enough, was eating as this first half was going on. So I had a good dinner as this was happening. We get to the 75 lap point. Bubba is out in front. He basically leads everyone at the halfway point. A lot of guys are coming into form. Kyle Busch is actually doing really, really good in the number 8 RCR Chevy, which is something I did not expect to happen, but it's Kyle Busch of all people, so what do you expect, in all honesty? But Bubba Wallace ended up winning the first stage. Some carnage happened. Unfortunately, with how small the LA Coliseum is, or just how small the track is, whenever an incident happens in front of you, you're not really able to slow down a whole lot. So guys like Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, and even I guess like not I guess, but more so like unfortunately AJ Allmendinger and Daniel Suarez, kind of got some pieces of it and damaged their cars quite a bit. Some guys were able to be fine; they didn't really get affected too much. But guys like Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, and AJ Allmendinger did get affected by it quite a bit, which kind of sucks with how small the LA Coliseum is. But 75 laps went by. It was a good first half. And then the last half happened. Now, to basically sum up what the last half of the race was, it took forever to get more than 2 to 3 laps in. Drivers would go like 2 to 3 laps and then a caution would throw. They'd be under not the safety car, but they'd be under the caution, follow the pace car around. Laps don't take down for some reason, which is a weird decision that they ended up making as to why laps don't take down or anything like that. They go back racing 2 to 3 laps later. Another caution occurs. They go back under yellow. They go back to the choose rule thing. A lot of things are being shaken up and everything like that. A lot of guys are going to the back and whatnot. It's just a mess. It basically got to the point where this was happening constantly, to the point where it took the field 35 minutes to complete 5 laps. Hear that sentence one more time. It took the field 35 minutes to complete 5 laps.
What? What the fuck?
Just 5 laps. Not 10. Not 15, not the last 75, no. 5 laps. That is how stupid the last 75 laps were. Now, basically, let me put this into perspective. Basically, nobody knows how to drive. Absolutely nobody knows how to drive the LA Coliseum, it seems. The Fox booth made a point to where it seemed like the only way to pass people is if you gave them a bump and run, you got them loose or whatever, and you passed them. It's the only way. But when you have certain drivers, I'm not going to name names, but when you have certain drivers that don't use the brakes because they want to pass people, there's going to be a lot of cautions. And this isn't just like from one guy, okay? This is like the whole field, probably like minus the leaders, I think, for like the last 75 laps, minus the leaders. Everybody was running into everybody. The brakes were being used. Nobody was slowing down. Everybody was just piling into one another. Somebody would get, someone, 2 cars back from somebody would not use their brakes at the right time, and they'd slam into the person in front of them, which then it creates a accordion effect where the guy in the middle, in between the guy that hit him, he goes right into the other dude and it spins the other dude out. It causes a caution. People can't brake because he might be coming back down across the racetrack and they hit him. It's just like, it's a fucking nightmare to watch. Well, not even just a nightmare. It is a laughing stock as to how these drivers approached these last 75 laps. Now, what's crazy to me is that the last 75 laps of the race had more cautions than the first 75 laps. And it had more cautions than the heat races in the first 75 laps of the race combined. And that is a lot of cautions in just the final 75 laps. So when I say it's a joke, and when we all say it's a joke, it's a fucking joke of how people literally run out of talent and run into somebody else, and a big wreck happens. Again, not going to name names, pictures and videos and everything like that I'm showing you. You'll find out. You'll just see. It's a joke. It's a joke how people go to this race. It's not even for points, even. It's not a points-paying race. But they act like they're trying to win, like, $1 billion. And that's what the price is at the end. When it's not. And it's a golden medal, which is fine. It's a medal. As close as we're going to get to, like, a podium celebration Formula 1 style in NASCAR. But, like, but the question is, were there flashes of good racing? Yes. When it wasn't being overrun by cautions all the time. There was a point to where I kept saying, like, on both Twitter and YouTube, calling when a caution's gonna happen, like, after every, like, 2 or 3 laps. And it was true. Every single time or at least I try to make a tweet, boom, it just happened. Right there. The wreck immediately happens. It's not even just like people slamming into somebody else that then creates a accordion effect where that person that they slam into slams into the dude ahead of them. No. This also stems from the fact that people literally are just taking each other out for no reason whatsoever, and it's stupid. Like, yeah, it's they're having they're racing or whatever. They're trying to go for the win, but it's just like, even at Bristol, you can bump and run somebody and they won't even be pissed off at you. You can't do that here. You can't do that at the LA Coliseum. And the reason why you can't do it is because of how small the fucking track is. So when you have drivers that have no idea what they're doing, not using their brakes, becoming talentless in like a snap of a finger, combined with the track being small, it creates this situation where everyone is going to do exactly the same thing that everybody else is doing, which is just running into people and not using their brakes and using the other drivers as braking points. But it's just laughable. It's laughable that literally at the Indy road course last year, we had multiple instances of this. And it just seems like that a certain individual, and not even just him, but multiple other people, have not learned from that race. Again, not naming names. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I'll give you a hint. He's a defending champion. There you go. But other than that, it finally got to a point where everybody finally turned on their brain and finally realized that the brake was on the left and not on the right. And they couldn't NASCAR heat it by just letting off the gas and letting their car coast or whatever, or NASCAR Heat Evolution, where they can just let their car coast to the corner. Whenever they actually turned on their brains, the racing was good for the final few laps. Truex ended up having the lead after Bubba ended up getting, spun out, funny enough. And Martin Truex Jr. ended up holding off the RCR drivers of Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex Jr., he won again. And it was amazing to see him win, even if it was a crash fest at this race. He ended up going up to the podium with Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, since they ended up doing the podium thing with the medals. It was nice to see Martin Truex Jr. win, especially with the fact that he literally went winless last season, and everything that he went through off season, or this past off season, just amazing to know that he was able to have something good come out of it. So, what I can say is congratulations to Martin Truex Jr. What I can't say is, why in the blue hell did everybody run out of talent? That's pretty much all I can say on that regard. Now, what would I rate this? What would I rate this race, like, out of 10? From the amazingly chaotic heats, they were pretty fun, to the amazing first half, to the jokingly clownish final 75 laps of the race, to hell, even the performance of Wiz Khalifa. What can I rate this race out of 10? Well, considering the fact that I liked the heats, all of them especially, including the last chance qualifiers, I liked the first 75 laps of the race. The performance by Wiz Khalifa was actually pretty good. However, the fans were, not the greatest when it came to that. But still a good performance. I liked it. So, if you just have all of that together, the race is a 10 out of 10. But when you add on the last 75 laps of the race and you just take those into consideration, you question if NASCAR should keep doing this. You really should. Or if you just think that they should just move this to a different venue. Because the last 75 laps were a joke. Not to take away from the fact that everything else before those last 75 laps were amazing. Considering everything that happened before the last 75 laps of the race, I can give this race a pretty high score, even though the crash fest that happened in the last 75 laps. I'll give it a decent score of a, I'll give it a light 6 out of 10. I'll give the 2023 Clash race a 6 out of 10. It's not the worst race that we've seen. It's up there with the 2020 Daytona Clash that was just a wreck fest to everybody when it's at Daytona, and I don't know what anybody expected. But this one was just stupid chaotic. Not even just stupid chaotic. It was just stupid. It was a joke. It was a clownish last 75 laps. But again, let's not take away any of the heats that happened, or the first 75 laps, or hell, even the Wiz Khalifa performance. Who doesn't love Wiz Khalifa? Come on now. So that's essentially what I have to say about this race. Oh yeah, did I also mention that they wanted, or that there was a rumor going around that NASCAR wanted to make the LA Coliseum a points-paying race? Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen, especially after what happened tonight. Let me know what you guys think of the Clash. I think it was an okay race. Again, the last 75 laps kind of killed it. But with a little bit of good racing that we had towards the end, it made the racing all better. I liked it. At least the heats. I liked the heats in the first 75 laps. That's what I liked. And I'm pretty sure everybody can agree with me on that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And yeah, let me know what rating you would give this race. And if you think that the Clash should either stay at the LA Coliseum, go back to Daytona, or go to a different venue. Because God only knows at this point. And do you think that at some point in the near future, the LA Coliseum is going to be a points-paying race? Because in my opinion, I don't see it, especially with how this race ended up. Just saying. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all in the next one. This was my first review of a race, and I think it went pretty well. So thank you guys so much. My name is Chris. I'm out. I'll see you over today. Peace out. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. I love you guys. And goodbye.